SME. Assalamualaikum, a very good afternoon. Yang berhormat, Dato Teng Chang Kim, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Investment, Industry, Commerce and SME. Yang berbahagia, Dato Yang Paduka Dr. Hajah Nuraida Muhammad Yusof, Chief Executive Officer of PKNS, Management Team of PKNS, Mr. R.A. Thiagaraja, Founder and CEO of K-Pintar and K-Pintar Management, Tuan Haji Idris, GM of Academy PKNS, our invited speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Embracing Industry 4.0 seminar organized by Academy PKNS and K-Pintar with the cooperation of State of Selangor and PKNS, strategic partnership with Invest Selangor and Senior Officer Association of PKNS. On behalf of the organizing committee, I wish to extend a very warm welcome and thank you to all participants, guests of honors, delegates from government, private sector, academia, and civil society for willingness to attend this Embracing Industry 4.0 seminar. We appreciate the Honorable Dato Teng for taking time off of your busy schedules to join us today. Yang berhormat Dato, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Industry 4.0 is building on the fourth industrial revolution, which can't be denied that the pace is too fast and the impact is too broad to ignore. With the convergence of technology and digital world nowadays, it brings a new era, bringing the new opportunity by the combination of technology, especially in artificial intelligence, robotics, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things, that eventually contribute to become a high-income and advanced economy, as well as improving the quality of life. To begin with, I'm honored to invite YB Dato Teng Chang Kim, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Investment, Industry and Commerce and SME, to deliver his keynote address and to officiate the Embracing Industry 4.0 seminar. Please welcome on stage, Dato.
Yang berbahagia Datin Paduka Hajah Nuraida, CEO PKNS, Organising Committee, Encik Rosli Abdul Rahim, Speaker from Malaysian Industry Government High Technology, MITE, Mr. Christopher Berger, and Ms. Bianca Smith from European School of Management and Technology, Berlin, Germany. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and selamat petang. Thank you for inviting me to this meaningful seminar and giving me the opportunity to speak. While I was preparing my speech, I thought a lot about advanced manufacturing and smart factories, their roles to drive Industry 4.0, and how all these are connected with Selangor's transformational journey to become a smart state. Acknowledging the current trend of Industry 4.0, big data, Internet of Things, and other new technologies, I must say that Academy PKNS and K-Pintar holds a very timely seminar to highlight the importance and relevance of these topics in growing our industries and business. With this seminar today, I believe it will take us one step closer towards realizing our smart Selangor vision together. Selangor, being the most developed state in Malaysia, is heading towards a future disrupted by technological changes and innovations. To stay competitive in the global economic era, we acknowledge the importance to stay abreast of industry trends, monitor latest development in key sectors, keep up with new technologies, embrace these developments, and finally become an agent of change. With Industry 4.0 being labeled as the fourth industrial revolution, this topic forms a major component of our Smart Selangor initiative and will always be considered for our future action plans. We actively promote and support industrial transformations, thereby encourage potential and existing companies in Selangor to reform their core business, as well as adapt to the ever-changing market and business environment through innovation and R&D. We strongly believe that being the early adopters of these new trends with partners from leading industrial nations could create more highly paid jobs for Selangorians and reduce our reliance on foreign labor. To facilitate the industry transformation process in Selangor towards Industrial 4.0, Memorandum of Understanding have been signed with few local governments in Europe and Australia, such as Bavaria and Victoria. In this spirit of facilitating change, please also allow me to share our recent efforts over the past few years. We have set up 4 specialized councils, namely Selangor Information Technology and E-Commerce Council, SITEC, Selangor Bio Council, Selangor Aerospace Council, as well as Selangor Halal Council, with the aim to establish a smart ecosystem within the state. We are developing a Selangor Bio Bay at Pulau Indah, similar to the concept of San Francisco Bio Bay. For aerospace, 3 dedicated aerospace sites in Serenda, Subang, and Sepang strategically form the 3S aerospace belt for Selangor, which expands from the north to the south region. In addition, we also further enhance the creative and digital startup scene via our Selangor Digital Creative Center under the Selangor Information Technology and E-Commerce Council, which will provide mentoring and guidance, seminars and networking opportunities for SME, startups, and young entrepreneurs to tap their digital potential. On the other hand, our Selangor Industrial Master Plan study, which was conducted by Monash University Malaysia, was officially launched during the mid of March last year. The study focused on the potentials of our 5 core industry clusters, which serve as guidelines for Selangor state government, particularly Invest Selangor, in the formations of a feasible action plan to advance the state economy to the next level. It is our intention to achieve economic growth with our strong industrial foundation and a more vibrant sector, a more vibrant service sector summarized by our guiding principle, manufacturing-based but service-driven. Hence, Selangor State Government will continue to position the state in these 5 core industrial clusters, namely transport equipment, food and beverages, electrical and electronics, machineries and equipments, and life sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, in terms of facilitating global trade and commerce, we welcome the outside world through our very own trade initiative, which started in 2015 called Selangor International Expo. We are fully committed to work with other countries in supporting globalizations, embracing new technologies, as well as promoting and facilitating knowledge transfer. We are glad to announce that our very own trade events becomes ever more exciting this year with the enhanced Selangor International Business Summit 2018 at our new venue, Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Center, MITEC. The 10-day summit will start this coming Thursday from 6 to 16 September, and the summit consists of 3 main events and our Selangor Smart City and Digital Economy Convention 2018, which runs from 13 to 15 September, particularly focuses on Industrial 4.0, e-commerce, and smart cities. Thereby, I wish to extend an invitation to all of you to join Selangor International Business Summit 2018 and beyond. Our summit will definitely be your fast access lane to meet business partners and marketing channels. We aim at positioning Selangor to become a global trading hub, especially in view of being a reliable gateway to ASEAN for domestic and foreign corporations. Diversity is our strength, and we gladly share this great platform to grow together. Many more projects are still a work in progress, but let me stress that most importantly, Selangor keeps moving forward. We are fortunate to have you as part of this thriving economic region, and I believe you may be interested in our future plans to join the next stage of our development process. We believe that collaborative measures and development will also augur well with our long-term efforts to attract more industry players or traders to come to Selangor, the gateway to ASEAN. Today's seminar provides a great opportunity to discuss Industry 4.0 and share international best practices, highlighting successes and lessons learned. We are also deeply honored that few of our prominent speakers have traveled great distances to be here with us today, and we are privileged to have world-renowned experts from Berlin, Germany, sharing useful and knowledgeable insights with our local business community on the applications of Industry 4.0. Before ending my speech, I would like to thank Academy PKNS and K Pinta for organizing and bringing in prominent
space, the plans of technology. Well, and by the ministry. All right, let's talk about Industry 4.0, Fourth Industrial Revolution. If you notice, for the past 18 months, especially in Malaysia, if you were to Google the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Industry 4.0, it is among the top 10 topics that's being Googled about 6 months ago. Now, dah tak ada dah lah. Now it's 1MDB, SRC International, and things like that. But about 6 months ago, top 5 topics was this. Now there's some confusion and understanding with regards to what is Fourth Industrial Revolution and what is Industry 4.0. Now I'll get into that. Well, this, if you were to Google Fourth Industrial Revolution, this is a standard picture that you're going to get. This is coming from the World Economic Forum. It tells you the chronology of the First Industrial Revolution, Second Industrial Revolution, Third Industrial Revolution, Fourth Industrial Revolution. And you'll find also there's a thing called the Third Industrial Revolution by Rifkin, which actually argues what Schwab is talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But I won't go into the specific. But basically, this is the guy, the man who makes it sexy to talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And this is his book. And it came to an apex conversation ni bila World Economic Forum was actually held in Kuala Lumpur. Then suddenly everybody is talking about Fourth Industrial Revolution. Everybody wanted to understand what it is all about. And then Klaus Schwab wrote 3 books about this. So if you have not read the blue book, now there's the white book dah. So ada dijual di Kinokuniya. You can get it for a further understanding about what is this all about. However, the key takeaway is this. It fundamentally changed the way products, either goods or services, being produced, delivered, and consumed. This is the basic fundamentals. And it affects every facet of business. If you can see, dulu we were talking about security, we were talking about cyber security. Now it's about IoT security. Transaction. Previously it was about centralized depository. Now people talk about blockchain and distributed ledger. Interface used to be buttons. Sekarang ni, siapa ada phone yang ada button? Siapa ada phone ada button lagi? Tak ada kan? Decision making, data spreadsheet to artificial intelligence, mobility from driver to autonomous, and factories from humans to robots. And based on the World Economic Forum literature and discussion, these are the 12 technologies they were focusing on. But it goes beyond this, because this is not definitive. If you were to talk to Malaysians at present, to the policymakers, we're looking at 23 technologies. If you're talking about Industry 4.0 specific, we're looking at 10. I'll go to the list afterward. And what happened is, since the conversation was talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, it gave birth to other 4.0 punya subject matter. In Malaysia, already they are talking about Forestry 4.0, Healthcare 4.0, Education 4.0, Quality 4.0, Construction 4.0, Society 5.0, due to the fact that the Japanese are talking about Society 5.0. They are going one number ahead. And Industry 4.0, and just, I think about 2 weeks ago, I was addressing the IEM, talking about engineering 4.0. Now the idea is actually, we're trying to get the nation to be prepared for the 4IR. So you can see there's a difference, Industry 4.0 dengan Fourth Industrial Revolution. Fourth Industrial Revolution talks about the whole phenomenon, whereas Industry 4.0 in the Malaysian context talks about the manufacturing punya portion. So the idea is we're trying to get the government, industry, academia, and society to be prepared. You talk about it, government pun tak prepared, industry pun tak prepared, academia pun tak prepared, society dah embrace dah. So the idea is that. No, so how does this shape the future? Well, there are a lot of examples out there, some of it in Malaysia, some of it outside Malaysia. The most popular one, this is about 3D printing. Kalau you tengok conversation sekarang, banyak cakap tentang the new national car project, betul tak? And you can see that this is Strata. This is a fully 3D printed car. So if you were to do 3D printing, so how? If you were to do a national car project, how? Even aerospace, as we were trying to build aerospace cluster at this juncture, a lot of components in aerospace now are being developed, being produced by 3D printer. They are looking into it. This is Adidas Future Cast, I think, something like that. This is a shoe, fully 3D printed. So maknanya you pergi beli kasut, you boleh cakap lah nak colour apa, customized purely for you, 3D printing. Now the idea is everybody can design their own shoe and it's being produced by Adidas. Augmented reality. If you look at this, this is one of the most popular example applied augmented reality. Pernah main benda ni tak? Pokemon Go, whereby a virtual, makhluk virtual duduk dalam dunia betul. You nampak this is as a plating, but the likes of IKEA contohnya menggunakan whereby you use their virtual perabot, letak dalam rumah you, then you can see the picture straight away. So business opportunity to this siapa yang design rumah semua. This is a popular Japanese group, AKB48. No, what this group has is actually this is the latest member of the group, and this is actually a virtual member. I tunjuk kat you ni due to the fact that this virtual member actually takes away jobs, because now the virtual member is getting paid for modeling jobs. Modeling jobs ini untuk iklan gula-gula. So you're taking away jobs from the actual people and actually having this as your spokesperson. AI, benda ni bukan misteri lagi. The likes of Netflix, the likes of Grab, guna belakang machine learning to understand where you're going, what's your next trip, what's your favorite movie and things like that. And you can see, because you watch this movie, then they're going to suggest to you the next movies. This also is something happening. This is Harmony. This is a sex robot. So they are being produced and it's taking over jobs. Jobs of the oldest profession in the world. Di Barcelona, the older people yang ada oldest profession in the world ni is making protests pada mayor of Barcelona due to the fact that they are being run out of business because of this robot. Ini mudah. Biodegradable food packaging. This is in Malaysia. It's being produced out of rice husk. But produced in Malaysia, not utilized satu pun di Malaysia. Because in Malaysia, we do not have a policy whereby kena pakai biodegradable food packaging. So all of this is for export. And this is Richard Branson. Kalau you tengok list of technology ni, space technology, dulu space technology ni can only be afforded by the likes of NASA or the Russians. And now eccentric billionaires can afford to build spaceship, and trying to get people to be on the moon. Now, a lot of those concerns is due to the fact of this. Kita risau pasal the future of work. This was presented to the cabinet previously, and also to Tan Sri KSN, the previous Tan Sri KSN, with regards to the future of work. With all that is happening, what will happen to work in terms of work, the workforce, and the workplace? Because kalau you tengok bangunan kita pun is being designed for the last type of workplace, the last type of work, the last type of workforce. So that is the concern. And as you can see, large number of jobs are at risk. Kalau you tengok Malaysians, 54% of jobs is at risk. Involving the semi-skilled workers, clerks, telemarketers, sales, factory workers, receptionists, these are the things. So they are concerned that dalam kita duk sibuk nak create pekerjaan, what type of work are we creating? Then there's issue with regards to hyperconnectivity. More than 40% of Malaysians have more than one connected device. I'm going to go fast because I know I have 45 minutes. Now, this is, I think, been beaten to death. You can't look anywhere dah. Sikit-sikit semua ada je smart city punya conference and conventions. Urbanization. 75% Malaysians are already living in urban areas. So only 25% duduk di kampung-kampung. So how do you do your planning? How do you do your business? Untuk siapa apa semua? And digitalization of everything. Talking about Malaysia mobile penetration rate, we have more handphones than people in this country. And what would be those challenges be? Well, kalau you tengok ini, remember this thing? Well, at a peak, there was about 72,000 of this dekat Klang Valley. Sekarang ni ada lah orang daripada Shah Alam. Saya nak tanya, berapa biji benda ni ada kat Shah Alam? Betul tak? And bukan tempat tanpa poster ni kan? And you hardly do this anymore, isn't it? Siapa tengok peta? And if you talk about digital, well, even the CDs are gone. Dengan artis-artis dia sekali. And it's not about just the old technology. Ini boleh kira old lah. Siapa pakai BlackBerry lagi sekarang? Ingat tak satu ketika, once upon a time, anybody who's anybody will be using BlackBerry. Now, siapa yang pakai BlackBerry, malu sorok dalam poket. And how about this? This is happening in Selangor. Started off by Bayar dan Peraga, betul tak? Then suddenly you pakai benda ni. Now, pakai apa? By phone. So you see, things are progressing. Look at this. There's more than 25 people in this picture. And you look at them. Ada siapa-siapa bercakap dengan siapa-siapa tak? So, impact not only to industry, ni society. Nobody's talking to anybody. Now, it's not only happening at the work level. Families. Have you heard the term phubbing tak? P-H-U-B-B-I-N-G. Is a new term to say gabungan phone dengan snubbing, whereby you're talking to a person in front of you, and the person in front of you is actually on the phone ignoring you. So it's called phubbing. And you see, perhaps contributes towards this. Malaysia fertility rate drops to its lowest level. Berita baru ni ya. August 16. Now we need to get used to the fact that production line is going to be like this. This is a factory in Kulim High Tech Park, whereby in the production line, there's going to be just a single person working. So, you're well aware of this. I won't go into details with regards to this. Now, what we're worried is actually this fourth industrial revolution will create greater inequalities due to the fact that people who have access to technology and people who does not. At present pun, sekarang kalau you tengok, technology advances have the possibility to create this. According to Oxfam, only 1% of the world riches control 82% of the world's wealth. And this map actually represents that. If you notice, based on GDP, the size of Africa, nothing there, almost nothing. And we talk about rise of cyber crimes. In Malaysia, cybercrime has taken over drug trafficking as the most lucrative crime. 70% of commercial crime cases are categorized as cybercrime. Then we worry about what happen if internet get disconnected. What happened to the smart city, smart buildings, smart thing. So you just imagine. Just imagine if your organization organize a one-day no internet day. Selalu kita buat English day kan. How about no internet day? What do you think? And then we're talking about privacy compromise. For example, drones. Everybody can buy drones now with high-powered camera and things like that. What will happen? No, you can fly drones into other people's property and things like that. And kita pernah kena. We've seen that personal detail of 46.2 million subscribers in Malaysia are compromised. Kali lepasan. Sekarang ni tidur you dapat panggilan telefon daripada entah mana-mana. Kan? How did they get it? Because due to the fact that cyber hacking ni. So, we see that these challenges are not only to Malaysians, but to the world. So, how are other people in the world reacting towards this? Well, the likes of UAE, they have a national strategy for the fourth industrial revolution. Selangor ada tak? Malaysia ada tak? Tak ada. Belum lagi. Right? France, talking about end of sales of gas and diesel car by 2040. France kata 2040. Well, the Indian said, I can do better. 2030. And because of this, companies are reacting. The likes of Volvo said they're going to go electric or hybrid by 2019. So, then what happened? Siapa yang pandai buat barang elektrik? Dia kata, well, since I'm good at electric equipment, I pun nak buat kereta lah. Dyson just announced they're going to do electric cars. Dyson. And then, even this, DHL, your delivery company, baru je ni, announced recently, 31st May, they're going to open a second factory to do electric vehicle. DHL, yang business ni tak ada kena-mengena pun dengan electric vehicle. And you got Singapore that announced this, vehicle rights, driverless vehicle rights. Then US are doing this. Estonia, voting to updating medical records, semua online. Tak ada lagi dah pergi, kalau pergi ke hospital, tiba-tiba klik, doktor tanya, you sakit apa? You ada allergic ke? Kan? Sebab everything is taught online. The Koreans are focusing on language translation because they don't want to learn any language. They said, just go to the glass and, the AI will automatically just translate. Honolulu, simple je. Dia kenakan saman siapa yang check phone when they are trying to cross the road, because they've got a lot of accidents with regards to that. And I like this. The British have announced that they're going to have a minister of loneliness. Due to the fact that, because due to the fact, you see just now, everybody is talking on the phone, but you're really lonely lah sebenarnya kan. So this is what's happening. Again, this year, January. Dubai said 25% of their building would be 3D printed. This is talking about plastics being used as roads, whereby, you know, in India, government make use of plastic waste in road construction mandatory. Maknanya any new roads kena pakai plastic waste. Maknanya dia recycle. So, soalannya, lepas you dah dengar, after you've heard the contoh yang I bagi, are we ready as a country? Now, normally dalam seminar macam ni, they are going to tell you to keep your phones. Now, what I would like you to do is do this. Take out your phones. Go to www.menti.com. Use the code 566449 and answer the questions. Are we ready or not? I'll just give you about 30 seconds, 1 minute. Boleh tak? Okay, I have a no answer, not sure answer, and yes answer. To date, there's about 10 person dah menjawab. Something, yep. Thank you for answering. And I'm going to get almost the same answer as wherever I go. About 30% will say yes, and the rest will say not sure or no. That means we don't believe that we're ready. Betul? So, sini about 33% say yes. But quite high, not sure ni. Compared dengan other time I'm giving this talk. About 30% not sure. Alright, anyway. Well, when I ask, are we ready? Well, in terms of the world most tech-ready country, we're number 31st in Malaysia. So, not good, not excellent, but not bad. That's the latest number, 131% mobile phone penetration. As I said, we have more handphones rather than people. We have about 25 million internet users. 31 juta orang, 25 juta internet users. And 24 million social media users. Maknanya kita punya Facebook user. And 48% of our internet users are actually online shoppers. There's a lot of, you know, that means kalau you jumpa dua orang, salah seorang tu pernah beli barang daripada internet. And if you look at the World Bank punya data readiness assessment, you see Malaysia is green, no red, a lot of things is green, but this is where we have yellow is actually in terms of senior leadership. Embracing this policy and legal framework. So these are the so-called relatively problem areas. And in terms of future production report, again, we're in the top 20 countries. So in terms of readiness, I'm not saying we're there. Macam kalau lumba lagi tu, ready, kita ready lah. Whether we can set and go tu, that's another question. I think we have these two speakers from German is trying to help us to get set and go. Because we're ready. So again, as I was saying, we're trying to get prepared for the 4IR. Now the thing is, bear in mind, not all organizations are at the same stage of understanding what this means to their business. Whether it's government, mana kementerian, agensi kerajaan state, agensi kerajaan pusat, sama aja. Because due to the fact that level of disruption differs from each industry dengan sektor, affecting services, products and business models. Now, kesilapan besar is to think that I am not this space, therefore I am not affected. Tak percaya, tanya pemandu taksi. Because dulu waktu my taxi start, Grab dulu was my taxi. Waktu it started dulu, even the people from Ministry of Transport dengan SPAD buat tak reti. Because they said, ini is ICT punya things, does not have anything to do with me. Now, baru terhege-hege nak bincang, nak cakap. And the same goes for driver taxi. So, I'm just going to touch a bit about this thing. This thing is going to be launched in October, so you got a sneak peek into this policy framework that's going to be announced by Ministry of International Trade and Industry. Now, Malaysia punya definition for Industry 4.0 is this. It is the use of interconnected digital and associated technologies in industrial production that enable transformation into people, process and technology to enhance efficiency, productivity and revenue. And these are the 10 enabling technologies that's being focused on. Additive manufacturing, 3D printing lah. Ni nama seksi dia sikit. And these are the 10 technologies. And these are the policy objectives. They are trying to, they call it ACT, whereby attract stakeholders to Industry 4.0 technology, create the right ecosystem for Industry 4.0 to be adopted, and transform. ACT, ACT. And then, these are the vision to become strategic partner for smart manufacturing in Asia Pacific, primary destination for high-tech industry, and total solution provider for advanced technology. And those are the rationale. And these are the national goal targets. You know, productivity manufacturing from the current numbers to increase by 30%. Absolute contribution in ringgit Malaysia of the manufacturing sector from 254 billion to about 392 billion. In terms of global innovation ranking, we're now number 35. We want to become top 30. And number of skilled workers at present, kita ada 18% to about 35. And this is the national framework. Kalau you tengok, shift factors, and these are the enablers. The enablers, the acronym is FIRST. FIRST, funding, infrastructure, regulation, skills and talent dengan technology and standards. And these are the national strategies. At present, as you can see, there is 6, 9, 10. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 strategies. And all these strategies, I think yesterday, the week before, they just had a big workshop for 3 days to actually come up with programs and action plans to come up with this. And to the conversations that we had in the holding room just now, there are funds being allocated. No new funds. Bear in mind, there's no new funds, but funds being reallocated. Because there is actually a fund for automation that's been given out by MIDA and things like that. So now they are recrafting. I think there's some work being done by Ministry of Finance and EPU with regards to that. And that's it. Thank you very much. I'm not supposed to pass to you yet. I'm supposed to ask any questions. Kan? Nanti dia marah pula kan. So any questions? Kalau tidak, my job is done here. Do you have any questions for me? I hope I didn't use I used my 45 minutes lah. Alright, okay. Any questions? Anything you want to ask about 4R Industry 4.0, the framework, what have we done, is the country ready, blah blah blah, anything? Kalau tak ada, then maknanya saya assume everybody is well aware what's happening and things like that. Any questions? Anything from Sligo? Tak ada. Malaysians are normally coy and shy about coming to the mic. Normally saya sentiasa berada di belakang anda, makna belakang betul. Tak ada? Alright, tak ada, then good. Alright, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rushdie, for the very interesting, actually, sharing session regarding the 4.0 policy. We're looking forward. We are not going to see in the future Minister of Loneliness. I hope so. Okay. Okay, for the next session, entitled The Four House of Digital Transformation, that will be delivered by our two speakers. The first from Mr. Christoph Berger, who is a senior lecturer from European School of Management and Technology, ESMT Berlin, Germany, and followed by Ms. Bianca Smith, co-director of Hidden Champions Institute, also from ESMT Berlin, Germany. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Christoph and Ms. Bianca.
Your slide.
You can. Okay.
Yeah. Search laptop. For this session, the audience is feel free to use the slide of all to post the question for speakers, so we can do the session parallel. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for having the opportunity to present some ideas on how to leverage Industry 4.0 and digital leadership. I would like to briefly introduce myself, and then I hand over to Bianca, and actually we do this talk back and forth again, so we will shift per section and give you examples. So my name is Christoph Berger. I'm with ESMT, European School of Management and Technology, since pregnancy, so to say, and pregnancy was 15 years ago. Where we were founded, and Bianca will elaborate a little bit on the history and the background of ESMT. I had a life before ESMT. I was working 5 years in industry, 5 years as a consultant, and 5 years independent, supporting small and medium enterprises for private equity, joint ventures, M&A up to IPOs. And at ESMT, I'm focusing on disruptive business models and how we can integrate new technologies into these business models. And I will try to bring my expertise into the talk later on.
So my name is Bianca. I'm with ESMT for 8 years now, more or less. And I obviously also had a life before ESMT. This means I studied economics, then I went to Spain to work there for 2 years and came back to Germany, worked for 3 years for a non-for-profit organization, and then I moved to ESMT. Within ESMT, I'm a program director and co-director of a newly found institute called Hidden Champions Institute. And within the institute, we try to do, first of all, research on the phenomenon of hidden champions. Then, secondly, we do education for and about hidden champions. And thirdly, we also provide kind of a platform. So you might ask, who are these hidden champions and what are they doing? So the term is already 20 years old, more or less. And one guy that is also strongly supporting us and gave us some relevant data that we can still elaborate on, found a very interesting phenomenon. So in Germany, we have around 1,300 of these companies. And usually hidden champions are not as SMEs. So we define small, medium-sized companies as companies that have a maximum of around 500 employees and around 50 million of revenues. And these champions are kind of in between. So they're not as big as the Siemens and Bosch, but rather in the middle. They're usually world market leaders for niche products and have a revenue of a maximum of 5 to 7.5 billion. So on average 300 million, you can say, more or less. And hidden because most of these companies are not known at all. So if I ask you the question, do you know Herrenknecht? Most of you might say no. But they actually have around 90% of market share for tunnel drilling machines. So their revenue is around 1.3 billion, and the overall possible revenue that you could get is 1.6 billion. So they're really dominant on the markets. And this is what we are doing. Let me shortly present you a bit more about ESMT. Christoph already mentioned it. We are still pretty young, founded in 2002 by, this is not working. Yes, thank you. By kind of these companies. So we already heard a bit about, I think Airbus was mentioned. So we have the strong companies in the back that founded us. Why did they do that? Because they said there's no single business school in Germany. So we need one. We have to send all our managers to Harvard, to London Business School, to MIT, to Stanford, but we can't send them anywhere in Germany. So they founded us, and we still have a very strong board of trustees. You can see Setschel there, Fernbach from Bosch, or Spohr from Lufthansa. Our initial dean has been one guy that came from the IMD, very, very well educated and capable of doing participant-centered learning. And our second dean, Röller, we unfortunately lost him a couple of years ago because Angela Merkel, our chancellor, asked him to join and advise her. So now we are with Jörg Rocholl, and he is also advising the finance ministry. So we are not only connected to the industry, but also quite strongly to the government areas. This is our campus. Very unique because it's in the old State Council building of the East German states. So Mr. Honecker in these times had his office there. And nowadays, and you can see this, on the right side, this was the office of Honecker, and now we have a cafe lounge there. We do have degree studies, so we have an MBA, EMBA, and a Master in Management, but still very, very small in comparison to other business schools. So we have around 300 students, but around 3,000 executives per year. So you already see the dimensions. We are members of quite a lot of institutions like the Global Network, which I would like to stress because there is universities like Yale, RCC, they're in, and we usually exchange quite often with them. And we are obviously also accredited, which is really important for us. And one thing we're really proud of is that we are kind of situated right in the city center of the ecosystem, startup ecosystem. So we also, and we highlighted that, have the Space Shack, a co-working area, and the Techstars and the Metro Accelerator right on our campus that also gives the opportunity to our students and executives to exchange with young founders and entrepreneurs. When it comes to credibility, the ranking is really important for us. So we are placed number 13 worldwide, number 1 in Germany, and this for a business school that is still pretty young, 15 years old, and still we are comparable to the really renowned business schools in the world. Okay, what would you like to do with you today? And I now hand over to Christoph already. So we will try to answer some of the questions that already have been addressed and like to go a bit deeper, like to give you at least a couple of frameworks and tools, at least very superficial, we might go deeper. And please raise your hands in case of any questions. We're open for that. If you don't understand something, just ask, and we are happy to provide the answer immediately.
All right, so now let me use the stage also. So the first section is a little bit about Industry 4.0 and digital leadership. How can we prepare for this disruptive environment? There are many things going on, and the question is, how can we gain guidance? And in preparing this talk, I went to the Google Trends page and looked a little bit up what the people look for. And I put in Industry 4.0 and digital leadership. And you can see here the number of hits. And Industry 4.0 is leading over digital leadership, whereas you actually might ask that it might be more important to think about how you lead this movement instead of only knowing the facts and figures. I also looked up some other buzzwords like artificial intelligence. And if you look at artificial intelligence, then Industry 4.0 and digital leadership becomes negligent. Yeah, you can see clearly artificial intelligence is much more important than thinking about leading the digital transformation or Industry 4.0. And then last but not least, I looked up the buzzword of blockchain. And if you look at blockchain, then artificial intelligence is no more important at all. We should talk about distributed ledger technologies today, right? And this is not what we want to do. At least not in the pure field of understanding the technology. But what we would like to ask is, and you mentioned that in the previous talk, so the Malaysian economy is developing incredibly nicely. Yeah, the GDP per capita is increasing and you make big moves. And the question is, how can you develop or how can you learn from German experience, from hidden champion experience on Industry 4.0? On 4 elements, the 4 hows. So how to design business models, how to lead the digital transformation, how to leverage disruptive technology, and how to prepare. You nicely said that you are ready. The next step is to go and to implement. So looking a little bit from a leadership perspective, how can you harness the business models, how can you harness the technology, and how can you transform the organization so that you are able to transform the company? And I would like to start with the first question on how to design business models. And I would like to inspire you or give you a few examples about Germany which we researched on how to set up digital business models. And whenever I bring those examples, you can think of whenever you have Industry 4.0 or new technologies, the question is, how can you use them from a leadership perspective, either to reduce costs, to create new business models revenue, or to create platforms where you can trade new business models. Yeah? And I bring a few examples, and they connect all these elements in one or the other way. Let's start with the pure German way. What is this? How much? He's right, he was listening yesterday where we had another talk. So this speaker system costs 100,000 euros. You would argue, are people crazy about that? And this is about a manufacturer in Berlin, and actually whenever I drive to the office each day back and forth, I pass their production site. And it's called Burmester, and if you believe the Financial Times, it's better than life. So whenever they are doing that sound system, they focus and improve every single step. And a few years ago, they innovated, going from a sound system that is in your living home or in your house to a sound system here for Porsche. Right? And now the idea is basically you don't drive anymore, but you sit in a mobile concert hall, listening to music, and you wake up and you are there wherever you wanted to go, right? So when you go to their manufacturing site, here you see some pictures. This is Mr. Burmester. He's been a former guitar player before setting up the company. When you go there, everything is controlled. So the whole value chain is bought in Germany, where they control the quality of each element. Besides one element, and these are the transformers, because in Germany there is no single producer of transformers anymore. Yeah? But all the value chain is controlled. When you go there, when they set up the systems, they have a room where the speakers are warmed up, right? You produce them, but then you need to vibrate them to give the sound of music. When they are warmed up, they look whether the speakers have the same vibration. If they have exactly the same vibration, they are put into the audio system. Imagine when you choose your partner, you're lying on the bed aside, and you think whether the heartbeat is exactly the same before you ask to marry. They do that. Yeah, so they look for each speaker. It's completely trying to leverage the harmony of the whole thing. They very much try to patent their intellectual property, because in terms of internationalization, that is important. And on that way, they also decided not to serve every market, because in some markets, you have to show your plans, the setup of the whole system, and they don't want to have that copied. Yeah, so they try to protect. The business is booming. It's very niche-oriented. They do only outrageous quality. Yeah? Forget about mediocre stuff. That will not leave the production site. Yeah, okay. Another example in Germany is Rocket Internet. I presume nobody have heard about Rocket Internet. When you set up new business models in terms of digitalization or Industry 4.0, you have a risk, right? Because every new business model, you don't know whether this will perform or not. From the idea to implementing the market, there are many risks. Now, what Rocket Internet said, we want to reduce the uncertainty of implementing those business models. And we simply copy business models that already work. Yeah? So we spot them, and then we try to imitate them and scale them incredibly fast to all the markets where these business models are not yet in. So Rocket Internet is focusing on B2C commerce, digital business, and they are looking at TechCrunch, they are looking at Reddit, for the new business models, and they basically copy the Amazons, the Googles, the Alibaba, and they copy the startups in those markets in the US and in China, because they say we cannot compete with Google, Alibaba, Amazon, but we can copy that, and then we scale the business models for Germany, Indonesia, Brazil, all the smaller economies where the big companies might be too lazy to serve, or where the market potential might be too small for them and not attractive. Yeah? I once talked to Microsoft and asked them about their innovation capabilities, and the CEO of Microsoft Europe told me, you know, we are very bad in that, because we need to have a business of at least 1 billion. Otherwise, we can't see it on our landscape. Yeah, we are 80 billion company, Christoph. We cannot look for 50,000, 200,000, a million or so. It has to be 1 billion. Yeah? So here they focus simply on that. Whenever they decide that they want to copy a business model, they have many people who would love to be the CEO or board members of that business models. All the consultants, all the investment banking people are lining up for that company because they help you to scale the business model. So they decide, and they need, from decision to launch the company, 80 days. When we talk to other companies, and they want to launch a new product, it takes, I don't know, 6 months is already very fast, usually 1 to 2 years, right, from idea until there. There, they decide in the board, 80 days later, the whole company is set up. Helpling is a platform for selecting service personnel. 80 days to select up, another 80 days, and they are present in 4 other countries. So their ambition is really to scale to be number 1, 2, or 3 in these market segments that they select in, and just much faster than any other competitor can be. I've been to their premises, so when they give birth to a company, the company is allocated at the board level, where all the executives sit, because like a baby, they need parent guidance on IT, on marketing, on developing the website, on developing the personnel and all these kind of things. When the baby is starting to crawl, the companies move to lower floors and become more and more independent, setting up their own personnel. A few success stories from them, it's Home24 or Zalando, which also then went public. This is then how they structure the whole knowledge sharing, because they want to learn about the lessons. And you can see they have knowledge sharing places for each model across functions, for each region, across companies. And they leverage the know-how how to scale the company, the tricks in engine optimization and so on, search engine optimization and so on. So that's about Rocket Internet. Another example is this. Anybody knows what that is? weight scale? Weight scale? No, it's not a weight scale. I have to tell you the story. So basically, on every Easter, we visit some friends. And when we go there, they show us whatever they have bought. And 3 years ago, they showed us the KitchenAid. You know KitchenAid? Yeah, so for baking. My wife said, oh, this is wonderful, yeah? And you think of the next birthday or Christmas present, so she got a KitchenAid, yeah? So the year later, we went there on Easter again, and they had this thing. And they told us what this is. This is a cooking machine. It's a cooking machine. Now look at this. Now the question is, how much is this cooking machine? If you want to buy it. The KitchenAid was actually a little bit expensive, so I was... This cooking machine costs above 1,000 euro. It's 1,100 euros, as big as this. Yeah? And you ask yourself, actually, why do you need that? Yeah? And the idea is that basically this is a cooking machine that is giving you concrete guidance how to cook. You select a meal, then the machine will tell you, please put that ingredients in there. You push the button, then the machine does 30 seconds, whatever. Then they say, put the next ingredients in there and does it on. And then it says, now you are finished, and you go there, and it's exactly the same quality. With the machine, you basically can select the menu for the whole week. Then you get a list of ingredients to shop for the husband to go shopping. Yeah, and here we go. We have wonderful food for the next week. And it's all natural cooked, yeah? So you misbelieve whatever you buy from the supermarkets. Here you take all naturals. It's a kind of event. In Portugal, the penetration of Thermomix is higher than the penetration of iPhones. Every 38 seconds, a Thermomix is sold worldwide. If you see it first, you would say it's outrageous. It's above 1,000 euros for a cooking machine which is as small. And if you want to buy it, it's not as easy, right? So you can't simply go there and say, I want to buy it. No, there is a showroom, and basically the neighbors will tell you have live cooking, how to use that. Then you can apply for a Thermomix. Then you wait. And after a few months, you are lucky enough to have one, right? Yeah? So it's incredible. So here you see a few elements. So on the touchpad, now they have recipes where you can select from. You can choose your own recipes. And it's a little bit meeting the trends of mistrust against the food industry, kitchen as a status symbol. It's a success story from Germany. Automated high-end natural cooking. Very niche-focused, again, very quality-oriented. This is another example. This is an example from Reza. Bianca mentioned that we are involved in the startup scene, and a colleague of mine, Jens, and I, we mentored Reza when he was into this incubator, accelerator, developing that idea. And his idea was, if you look at energy efficiency, basically the new builds are already energy efficient, so that's no problem, right? You have regulations, they are all the best technology, but you have a lot of old buildings, and they waste energy. And for those old buildings, you have the incumbents like Schneider Electric, Siemens, Honeywell, who equip all the big buildings, but who are some sort of expensive for smaller buildings. And Reza's ambition was to help the smaller buildings to save energy, electricity. And he developed a cube system, and the cube system is linked with sensors on air temperature, on heat, and so on, but also on CO2. Because when you measure the CO2, degree of the air, you know how many people are in the room. Knowing that, you can regulate the lighting, the heat, yeah, the cooling, and so on. So he developed that cube system on a very low-level basis, so very cheap. And in the beginning, he thought, now, what do I do? So I go to the real estate companies and then say, we sell that, and then we share the savings. Yeah? But he failed, because whenever you want to share the savings, you have different positions. Because the real estate owner would say, basically, you didn't save the electricity, I changed my behavior. That's why we saved the electricity. Yeah? So there is incomplete information, and it doesn't work. Now, he does it as hardware, as a service model. So basically, he gives as a flat fee the whole system, the cube, and then the whole monitoring, and the savings stay with the owner, with the landlord, and so on. And now it's taking off, and it's also taking off because he got a strategic partner, because whenever you have an innovation here, technology information, you need the distribution network. So he's working now together with an electricity company exploiting the scene. Now I hand over to Bianca, who gives a few other examples.
Let me briefly give you 2 more examples, and then I again hand over to my wonderful colleague. So this is another example of one hidden champion, actually. And you will see that I particularly stress on exactly this kind of companies. So Dental is working in the dental area. They're a family-owned business. They have an export rate of around 80%, 1,000 employees. And they now digitize their business models. So what they do is they're working exactly with these kind of image plates for X-ray for the dental industry. So if you go to a dentist nowadays and you get X-rayed, probably it's done with these kind of small plates. So instead of just using it one time, as before, you now can use them several times. So it's a cost-efficient thing, and it's easy already like put into the cloud, into the systems of the dentists. Another example from a very different sector is Grimme. And this is just one particular example from the agricultural business. But you might also address Accor, for example, and we recently met the CEO on a conference in Yale, or to Claas, also a big supplier for these kind of machines. They are doing kind of the same things nowadays. So what they are actually doing, again, a family-owned business, and they're producing these kind of potato harvesting machines, but now would also go into celery and beetroots and stuff like that. So they offer, first of all, you can steer via app how much seed you need for your fields. Secondly, it can be driven autonomously, so you don't need any driver anymore. And what they also offer via app, via satellite, is predictive maintenance. So you know when you need to go and have a maintenance with these machines nowadays. Just 2 very smallish examples. And let us come to a third example, not from a smallish company like that, but rather from a big corporate player in Germany.
Thank you very much, Bianca. So let's move on. If you talk about Germany, you have to talk about the car industry, right? That's a must. And here we have an example of Mercedes-Benz trucks, and they developed a fleetboard cockpit. And I would like to... He can do that? Okay, good. So next. Show a short video where they explain the logic and the benefits of that system. It's coming.
As a transport service provider, you are responsible for a complex process. Naturally, you do everything you can to manage this efficiently and to keep all the costs under control. There's just one problem. Everything you'd like to be able to influence has gone away. No, not gone forever, but on the road, kilometers away, crisscrossing all over the map. Fortunately, there are telematic systems which create order in all this turmoil. But that's just the first step, because order doesn't mean influence. For example, it's your drivers who are able to exercise influence. So your question is, how can I get a grip on this so that we can work together to achieve an optimum driving style? The answer is Fleetboard. You can see at a glance how your driver performs in terms of braking behavior, speed, accelerator pedal movements, and anticipatory driving. In other words, everything that influences fuel consumption and wear and tear. Fleetboard translates this into a driving style score. Simple, but smart. Because in order to make a fair evaluation, Fleetboard takes account of the gradient, the weight of the truck, and the number of stops. So both you and your driver can clearly see where savings can be achieved at a glance. You're saving on fuel consumption? Up to 10%. A further benefit is that Fleetboard guarantees the optimum uptime for your fleet, because your workshop will be able to see when maintenance is necessary well in advance and can plan this in ideally so that your truck won't suffer any unplanned stops or downtime. What does this mean to you? This means maximum availability. So now you have a grip on driving style and maintenance. But what about your daily operations? Fleetboard also has the answer for this. Fleetboard takes away a lot of your day-to-day worries. Your ops team can always see exactly where your trucks and their loads are located. It also gives an overview of driving and rest times and simplifies tacho management at a distance over the air. This means that you comply with all the legal requirements. So, can one efficient system enable you to oversee and influence both fuel and maintenance costs together with planning? It certainly can, whether it be a Mercedes-Benz or some other make of truck. With Fleetboard, everything is once again close at hand. Fleetboard, the total solution for your fleet.
So I mentioned in the beginning that if we look at new business models, we should watch out a little bit what they are, how they can combine digitalization in terms of process cost optimization platforms and so on. And I think this is a very nice example of trying to have process cost optimization by transparency of the value drivers of one value chain or one service. But let's go beyond. So basically the next step in the car industry is automated driving. And Bosch is very much focusing on the sense, think and act. So trying to leverage the data that are sensed, then trying to find algorithms to let the car independently decide what to do in what kind of situation. And you can see here on the right-hand side that when we think about automated driving, we usually think of Tesla, right? And those companies trying to revolutionize the whole auto market. But if we look here at the patents issued, we see that many patents still come from Germany. Worldwide, over 52% of the patents are from Germany. If we look at the supplier side, about 3/4 of the German supplier issue patents right now for this next step. Again, a little bit what I said also for Burmester, trying to protect your intellectual property for the next step ahead is an important way if we talk about digitalization and how to harness it. Last but not least, as a next step in the car industry, is the point that you try, if you have an automated car, the car needs to do business. Needs to do business in, for example, charging electricity, needs to do business in terms of finding the right way, needs to do business in selling electricity, for example, to the grid. So the car itself becomes an autonomous person and doing deals. And the question if the car doesn't want to do deals only with the Daimler network or only with the BMW network, but wants to do deals on a platform of mobility services. And you can see here that based on the blockchain, they are starting to set up platforms for mobility services where you then can interact on those different fields, and you can more or less select services like you select songs on the iTunes store right now. You can then select whatever services that might be needed for mobility services. That was an overview on how to harness digitalization Industry 4.0 on business models as a first leadership question. The next leadership question would be how to lead in the digital environment. And I would pass over on that topic to Bianca, who will talk about how to combine ambidexterity and agility.
Thank you, Christoph. Okay, so we go away from the digital business models and go more to the organizational part, to the leadership part, and what could this mean for an organization and also for your leadership style. Okay, we will cover 3 topics very, very shortly. The first of all, ambidexterity, agility, and a concept called teaming. Does not sound very complex, but it's something that gets more and more important if you want to work in kind of these environments where you really try to be quicker in developing new things. So coming from there and saying, okay, how to manage growth and innovation within companies, within existing companies. We have the old world, obviously, and in the old world, we obviously have our business models. We know our business. But we would also like to go into new businesses. This means that we have to develop new things. It does not necessarily have to be disruptive. It might also be incremental. But still, we change our way of working in this environment. And we obviously always stress to create new possibilities, new opportunities, strive to search for more. And their concept called exploit and explore really helps. The concept is based by Tashman O'Reilly, 2 professors from Harvard, and they developed 2 things. First of all, the ambidextrity model that will come later, and also this one. So the basic model here, it's quite simple. So basically, you say, in the old business, you try to exploit. You still keep working here. You know your processes, you know your customers, you have your margins. You might potentially develop your products a bit further incrementally. But then you try to find new business models, new markets. So this is the exploring part, where you would use the cash cow of the exploit business models to develop new things, to develop new businesses. And this is where everything comes from. And how do you do that? Research clearly shows that there's one model working pretty well here. And it's not a functional design. It's not like unsupported teams where you just put your emerging businesses into the same line as your other functions. It's neither cross-functional teams, but it's exactly the ambidextrous organizations. So putting your business apart from the old business, have kind of a new outsourced organization. You might also call that dual operating model system. This is a model based by Kotter. So this works best, and there's a lot of research here that really proves that you might work here. I give you one example of a German company, which is called Klöckner. And Klöckner is a distributor of steel and metal products. And they actually started to think about, okay, how can we digitize our entire part of Germany? And they decided to build the new digitized company, not in Duisburg. They geographically decided to go somewhere else. They decided to go to Berlin because, and we already mentioned that a couple of times, this is supposed to be the startup ecosystem in Germany. So they decided to go there, they worked with a consulting company and set up a new business model. So they're here now with 30 employees working on digital products, services, marketing things. So they're supporting also Klöckner with all the digital affected things that Klöckner is doing. Strongly, strongly supported by the CEO, who also supported the development of exactly these new business models. And they're quite successful with this business. So one example for this one. Then you say, okay, we want to build up the new business, but how do we work in kind of these environments? And a lot of companies, not only in IT and software development, go away from waterfall development, but go into agile methods. One of the examples here is you might apply Scrum or Kanban, even in process and project management. So I'm working together with Berliner Sparkasse, like a bank, and they're now applying the Scrum methodology for strategic top management decisions. It works out well, but it's one first example. There are not many companies doing that yet. So instead of waterfall, where you would develop something, a product or a service, from the beginning until the very end, and then release it and test it with customers, you here say, okay, how can I subdivide my product, my service, into very small items and release this in between? So you have a small, minimal viable product, release it, test it. So I go actively to my customer and say, do you like that? Do I have to improve that? Are we on the right track? Or do we have to go back and develop it differently? So this is the way how you might work here. So Scrum as a methodology is something that works similar to the Agile method. And you usually work here in kind of sprints that take around 2 to 3 weeks, and the cycles are getting shorter. And the next aspect is teaming. In these kind of methods, it's crucial to work in teams. And you don't work in teams that are always the same. No. Today I would work together with all of you. The next time probably I change the team and work together with you. This is very important because it has a lot of benefits. Why is that? So we already stressed that we're working in kind of a very volatile and complex environment. So the challenge obviously is if you change teams all of the time, you might have people that don't like each other or that have different values, different expertise, but this is actually good. And I explain in a second why. You have also, when working in teams, and we are nowadays working not in companies that are predominantly situated at the same place. No, we get to use also working in colleagues from the UK, wherever. So I have different time zones, I have different cultures. This is the distant part. Relationships. When I change teams, I obviously also always have to build new trust, have to get to know more people, have to also develop different networks. And when it comes to the projects themselves, they are not the same. So I always have the challenge that I have to really speedy understand the problem, the underlying problem, the reasons why we do this project. And I have to adapt very, very quickly. Uncertainty, the last point. Uncertainty, obviously, we don't know exactly where we might end. And also the situations are changing. Do we really understand the customer correctly? There are a couple of things that are coming up. So obviously, teaming up gets you a lot of benefits. It gives you the opportunity to learn other disciplines, to get a broader perspective, to gain insights into other cultures, build new networks around the world, interpersonal skills development. It might also support you because you have a broader overview of different things that you really can adapt more quickly to the customer's needs. And you obviously also get to know a lot about project management because this is really pure project management when working in these kind of teams. So the main 3 points here are the basics that you, in these kind of teams, from a leader's perspective, you have to provide psychological safety. You have to provide also the purpose. Why are you doing that? And thirdly, you also have to learn as a leader, but also as a team, that it's okay to fail. And there might be conflicts that you have to resolve. One company that is doing pretty well when it comes to teaming is B. Braun. A not so hidden champion anymore, working in the healthcare area, around 6.8 billion of revenue, 61,000 employees, so really huge. And they're doing a lot of different products, actually. So they're doing these kind of small robots, they're doing things on blood treatment, surgical instruments, they do minimal invasive tools. Then you can see on the right-hand side an example. And they're also having like these kind of injections and infusions. So they're doing a lot in this area. And they claim sharing expertise. So B. Braun stands for sharing expertise. And they prototypically live what I just described with the teaming aspect. So they say themselves that they develop effective solutions, that they have constructive dialogues with their colleagues, but also with customers, and that they really try everything to improve people's lives. So there's also the passion element, right? So it's about trust, empathy, communication, community, and also this kind of different attitude mindset that they try to develop and in the past have developed quite nicely. So again, and I come to the last slide, if you want to work in teams like that, if you really want to stress this kind of teaming aspect, you have to give your employees psychological safety, and you also have to make them accountable, engage them, empower them. This usually works in an organization via very decentralized units where the people can really already see the results of their own doing. If they act, they immediately see what they have done. They also immediately see if they've done a failure. And then they come into kind of a learning zone where they can still go on and develop further.
Thank you very much, Bianca. So we have covered so far two hows, right? How can we use digitalization for business models and how to lead digital transformation. And in the beginning, I had these Google Trends checks, what are the hits? And there were two other hits, artificial intelligence and blockchain. And I would like to cover a little bit these technologies. So how can we leverage disruptive technologies, specifically AI and blockchain, for our business development? And I would like to point out the race for big data and platforms that enables these two technologies. So let's start with AI. What is AI? So you know this is tic-tac-toe. What would be the next move? Where does the circle go? Next? Next to the crosses, right? So here we go, okay. We call that human intelligence. All right? So you see the pattern. Some mystic intelligence, we call it human intelligence, happens, and then we act. Now the question is, can we automate that? And yes, we can. And this taking data, then trying to use the data to imply some action, is sometimes called artificial intelligence, is sometimes called machine learning, is sometimes called big data. It's basically about statistical methods to harness the data available and to propose one action. And yesterday we had another talk where people were a little bit hesitant whether we should purely automate that or whether we still need human interaction to check whatever the system proposes us. And the answer is usually that depends, right? For some easy processes where there's not a big risk, you might say we automate that completely. For others, this is just an enabler for human decision making, okay? A bit time ago, there was a so-called breakthrough. We remember many years ago where basically the first computer software were able to beat chess players. But the next level of complex games is Go. And a few weeks ago, then the IBM Watson was able to beat the Go player, the world-leading champion. And that created another buzz. But when we look at artificial intelligence or machine learning or however you call it, it's basically already there for a long term. So we go back on the term technology. In 1956 with the Dartmouth conference, there was already coined that artificial intelligence machine learning. Yeah, in the 60s, 90s, 80s, it was recoined data mining, computational statistics. So the technology there, the concept is already rather old. What happened that we now talk more about that is that the computational capabilities tremendously expanded. We know Moore's law. When I was in consulting, one of my first projects was to restructure the chemical industry of former GDR, Eastern Germany. And I was in charge of the NPV calculations of Buna, the plastics producer. So I set up the whole spreadsheet. At these days, the computer was a big box, was really heavy. Yeah? It was like a suitcase, 20 kilos. So I set up, I plugged in the data, I pressed go, and then I could go to a coffee break, right? So the computer was calculating, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I went back, still not finished. Another coffee, I went back, still not finished. Finally, I go there, I know the NPV. Today, it's like, boom, here it is. Yeah? So no problem to be much faster. And last but not least, we now have human-machine interaction. We know this Alexa, but we know many other data gathering techniques because we are getting more and more online. So the pure number of data that can be analyzed increases exponentially. And for statistics, we need a lot of data. Yeah? So the pure thing of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep mining, big data is now that we try to collect data and then we let run the algorithms and we see whether we can do better decision making. And if we talk about competitiveness in data, you would argue that the more data you have, the more precise are your business models or your implicated algorithms and develop. I'll give you a few examples on how to apply artificial intelligence in business because I think you don't need to become an expert in statistics. What you need to know is how can I use that statistical methods for your business processes, yeah? And try then to set up projects and hire the people who can do that. And here we have a nice matrix, so one insurance and all these kind of things. Another example is to automate processes and offerings. Is here Klaas is a competitor of Grimme, and Bianca pointed out the example of Grimme where you automate basically the way how the seeds are put into the earth, when it's put into the earth, the density of the seeds, and the weather forecast and all these kinds. On the processes and in form, you can have virtual reality to enable you in the acquisition process or in the customization process, right? Instead of trying to build in a small model for whatever you want to do, you have a virtual reality and the people can run through the real estate as if they were already in there and they can select whatever fits best and that helps them to decide. Or automate, and here we have the KUKA robots, or we might have the chatbots, or any other interaction where you basically can say for simple elements you can try to automate. For example, there are artificial intelligence or language intelligence systems that automate the responses of emails. Yeah? And then there's still a human person who checks whether this is rightly appropriated, but the productivity in answering emails is automated. Now I would like to shed a little bit light on blockchain. It was the year 2008. Anybody remembers what happened in the year 2008? Financial crisis. Yeah? In the year 2008, financial crisis. So in Germany, Angela Merkel told us, no problem, don't worry. Your savings accounts are safe up to 100,000 that you will get. Whatever is above is unfortunately lost. I feel with you. Yeah? Okay? So, and then we were shattered in the belief that the banks is the right place to deposit our money, right? Because suddenly, if they tell you, you know, don't worry, but the rest is gone, that's not so nice. In the same year, in October 2008, somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto, whom we don't know who that is, came up with the idea we do banking without a bank. So to send money from A to B, right now we have a central computer unit at the bank, and they are sending the money, they are doing the checks. Now we agree that we as a network, we do the verification. Yeah? So if Bianca wants to send me some money, she sends some money. It's anonymized, pseudonymous, because it's a public key. The ledger, so the account is no more at a single bank, but it's on all of our computers. So you look up whether Bianca has the money to send it to me. You say yes, Bianca and myself, so you don't know the persons behind myself. Then we still have the question of fraud. So you could try to manipulate. Yeah, you get a majority vote that says, no, it's not Bianca sending to Christoph, but to myself. So we have to prohibit that. And in order to prohibit that, everybody on our computer has to solve a puzzle. That costs energy. And it basically would be economically unwise to do that because you would spend more on energy than on the transaction itself. Yeah? So that is prohibiting that. So we do that, and now we can transfer money to us without a bank. And the simple cost of validating the transaction is us who do the mining versus the cost of the bank with all the overheads and the controlling departments and so on. And our computers run anyway, so we do that aside. Yeah? This is an open chain, so everybody of us can be part of this Bitcoin network right away. Yeah? You might also think of Bitcoin, there's a limited amount of Bitcoins, it's 21 million. So whenever you do your asset allocation, it's up to you to decide whether you believe more in the stability of the euro where Mr. Draghi is printing euros again and again and again, or in this network of unknown individuals who decide by majority, but they only claim that there will be no more than 21 million Bitcoin. Yeah? Sometimes you wonder which is more risk averse. I don't know. Yeah? It's up to your personal decision making. Okay, so that's 2008. Then it became November 2013. And in November 2013, this young man, a Russian Canadian called Vitalik Buterin, had the idea we do this distributed ledger technology. So basically the ledger is no more at one place at the bank, but at all of our computers. We do another network, but this network is not only for dumb payment transactions, but now we can automate contracts, so-called smart contracts. I give you an example. You produce PV electricity on your rooftop, and you decide you want to sell that electricity whenever you have enough electricity to the price X. I live across the street. I would say I buy electricity to the price Y whenever I need electricity. Now we are on this public network, Ethereum, and whenever the conditions are met and the electron from your roof hits my home, in the exact time, the Ether, that's the currency of that network, will hit your wallet. Yeah? So there is no more invoicing whatsoever. It's automated and back and forth, and here we go. So they went to Zug and developed that network. This is also an open network, so we can all become part of it. And this, you might say, is the network of automated contracts for a world of Industry 4.0. Whenever the machines do the businesses together, whenever it is automated. Yeah? And I look to the corner, how much more time do I have? 3 minutes? Okay, very good. So then, in May 2016, I cut that short. A guy called Christoph Jensch had the idea that a company is simply a smart contract, right? The charter you can put as a code, as a programming code. And he did that. He wrote it down. He called it decentral autonomous organization. So there was no board, no whatever. It was simply the people who signed up to be owners of that company and get the shares of that. And he did a crowdfunding in 2016. And within 4 weeks, this decentral autonomous organization raised 160 million US dollars. It was the biggest crowdfunding project ever in the world up to that stage. Now there are bigger ones because that created creativity and others use that as well. Yeah? I skipped that one. The question is now, how can we use blockchain in business, right? I told you, you don't have to become an expert in AI or in blockchain technology. You simply have to ask, how can I use these new technologies to your benefit, to the benefit of the companies? And here's again a matrix, and I will lead you through the matrix. You simply can say, can blockchain help me to reduce process costs? Yeah? And this is, for example, one example by a startup. It's called Abra. And Abra says, if you look at international money transfer, remittance payments, today if you are an Indian in the US, you go to an American bank, the bank charges you a fee, the bank sends the money to an Indian bank, the Indian bank charges you a fee, and after miracle 4 weeks, the money hits your beloved ones in India. Yeah? Abra said we can do that on the Bitcoin network, in the currency whatever you want, and the costs, the transaction fee is no more 7%, only 2%. It's paperless, and it doesn't last weeks. It's 2 hours, and here we go. Yeah? So simply reducing process costs. Another example in trying to reduce process costs or to leverage blockchain technology for process costs or transparency is Shah. They are a world market leader in wool, and they are high priced. And if you are high priced, you want to make sure that your customer understands the origin of your ingredients. So they put on the blockchain all the ingredients of their wool, where they come from, so it's completely transparent. In terms of real estate, if you look for cement, for example, sometimes you have lower quality cement, right? And then the people start pushing the prices for setting up all these infrastructural projects, and they go with it. And now with blockchain technology, you have a method, you have a technology where you can put transparency on the quality of cement on whatever ingredients. So whenever something happens in the future, it's clear where the weak part was. Or for you to help to enable a higher pricing for the quality of your products. Platforms. You can think of blockchain technology as a platform, creating platform. Christoph Jentsch, who did the DAO, set up a company called Slocket. And Slocket provides a lock, and you can put that lock, for example, on your apartment. And whenever I use the apartment, I put my key on the apartment, I use it, and whenever I use it, immediately my money gets transferred to you. We could have a sharing economy of all our apartments. Yeah? So we know who is part of that. You can look up whenever you are in Berlin, oh, Chris' apartment is free. I said, of course, you are happy to stay at my place. You go in there, you open with your key, you are in, you go out, I get the money, all fine. So whenever you have now information aggregators like Airbnb, they are challenged by that technology because we could do that ourselves. Whether we do that depends on us, right? If we are too lazy to set that up and we are happy to charge or pay the prices of Airbnb, no problem, we can do that. Yeah? Last but not least, incumbents and platforms. So here we have APRA, right? APRA is looking to optimize one process of remittance payments. Now, if you are a bank, you could say, now I get really angry that APRA is taking away this market. Or I can start to set up a blockchain myself. In that case, that is Ripple. And I offer these international financial settlements on my own, based on a consortium. So Ripple is more or less the counterpart of the banking industry together as a competitor to APRA. And whenever you see that, and that is what I wanted to point out in terms of platforms, that doesn't work anymore in the single company. That only makes sense on an industry level, right? And that is why basically right now, if you look at these elements, you see that companies or consortia are competing to be the platforms for industry transactions. In the banking space, in the energy space, in the insuring space, in the supply chain space, and so on, Maersk and IBM, and so on. And so there are different consortia trying to develop the platforms for these actions in the future. To finalize a little bit our house. So the question is now, so what, right? And what we would argue is AI won't replace managers, but managers who use AI will replace those who don't, right? And the same way, managers who use blockchain will replace those who don't. And I think we have one more slide, because the fourth how is now we leave you with that. The question is, how can you try to prepare for that? And we, together with K Pinter, developed the postgraduate diploma in digital leadership to be able to set, where is it? This one. To be able to help you to harness these technology, the digitalization, the Industry 4.0 to your benefit. And I leave it to Bianca to explain and to conclude.
Okay, very shortly. So we were thinking about that, and when developing kind of the ideas, and we actually also kind of made our talk according to that. We now gave you a glimpse of like everything, and what we think might work to go into depth with a lot of these things that we now at least triggered a bit, is the postgraduate diploma in digital leadership management. So there are two different tracks that we would offer. So the first track is exclusively possible to be done in Malaysia by being in 16 days of courses, and usually the courses last around 2 days. So this might mean like taking 8 different courses, and you have here like an idea of the different ones. A lot on managing digitalization, innovation, like digitizing marketing, sales, digital strategy, entrepreneurial mindset, but also leading change, and we at least also covered it slightly. Negotiation strategies, things like that. Also being like added by different webinars, like a deep dive into blockchain, what Christoph now started to explain, cybersecurity, and we had that in the first talk. Or the second track would be 10 days of masterclasses and then 6 days in Germany on a very practical, hands-on program where we would not only give you insights, but also would take you to the different companies where you might also exchange with different stakeholders and benchmark examples. And then all of the courses would end with a very short test, online test, and finally you could gain a postgraduate diploma in digital leadership management. That's basically it, and we can provide further information on that. But I would like to say thank you for listening to us and for having also the opportunity to speak in front of you. Thank you very much.
And now we are ready for questions, right? So thank you. No questions? Everybody ready for the evening? Then I wish you a wonderful digital evening. Don't forget to talk to whoever. There are the questions. Here we go. Very good. Then let me see. What the German government did when trying to move to the next stage of the industry, how to get the buying from investors. May I? Yes, so we have governmental programs. There are different programs. One was Industry 4.0 to enable exactly a little bit what is going on right now in Malaysia. So ours was launched some years ago to enable research institutions and companies to prepare for the next level, but also to integrate technology developers, to push innovation. For example, in Berlin is Industry 4.0. We also have now a next level program, which is called Smart Service World. We talked a little bit, it's not only about the shop floor industrialization, but it's on the services on top. So we are now engaged in the second program of such a kind, Smart Service World, where we basically build a blockchain-based energy platform in Berlin and check out these services and how that can be realized. So that is the first one. How do you see the readiness of 4.0 in Malaysia? What level? Again? Okay, good. So basically, we had the pleasure to have the Smart Business Leader program together with K. Pinter. So we had many smart business leaders from Malaysia to Germany. And what you hear is always, but that is not actually specific to Malaysia. We also hear that from the Chinese or from the Brazilian. Yeah. So Germany, aren't you too far ahead? Yeah. I don't need Industry 4.0, I need Industry, I don't know, 1.5 or 2.2 or whatever, yeah? And I'm deeply convinced that's a little bit what Bianca said. So when you do your strategy, you try to optimize your traditional business, and that might be Industry 1.2 or 2.2. And our masterclasses here in Malaysia very much focus on that. So basically to give you hands-on material to improve the traditional business. But on the same time, I think you should prepare for the next 3 years and try potentially not Industry 4.0, well, potentially Industry 5.0, because sometimes you might have the opportunity to leapfrog. Because in Germany, we are still embedded in the system. For example, if we talk about decentral energy generation, we have a great grid in Germany, so the decentral energy generation is not blossoming as much as in other countries. So I would encourage you to think in both levels, one for the traditional business, but also trying to think how you can prepare the competences or the business models for a little bit more medium terms. Elements of Industry 4.0, do you want to? These are the three.
I think if you would have a look at Germany, are they really ready for Industry 4.0? Probably not. I mean, we have this Industry 4.0 platform from the German government, yes. But if you go into the companies, no, they're not. I mean, they also struggle with a lot of things, like the interconnectivity of the different machines that they have. If they start off with being from different companies, so it's difficult to integrate that because they're like running on different systems. So this is a huge problem. There might be some companies like Festo that are ready, in theory, to fully are industrialized 4.0, if you want to call it like that. But still, this is not the truth. So they're also striving for that. And you can see that by the initiative run by the government that they're still not. And that they're also like having a deep look into it. And that they're also trying to get more out of that. And with the elements, well, it also depends how strongly you would like to do that. And I always really focus on the connectivity of the different things. Yeah, and what you would like to reach. I would rather not focus on the elements, have a look at that, but then think about what would you really want to use. What is really necessary? How can you save costs? How can you integrate things better? How do you get processes better along? Think about the overall aim. And this is something that we hear very often, not with regard to Industry 4.0, but to platforms. So it's not, we need a platform, it's what do you want to reach, and is platform the right medium? So start with this question first, I would suggest.
Then I can answer what are the elements of Industry 4.0? We would argue these are the four hows, right? How can I use it for my business model? How can I do the leadership of the digital transformation? How can I integrate disruptive technologies? And how can I educate my people to do that step? So these would be, in our view, the four elements. Then I had this environment. Where was the environment question now? I totally agree with the environment question, especially if I look in Germany. We had, a few years ago, we had climate change talks here on the energy level, and then usually after the third talk, I could predict the flow of the discussion. The politicians would say, yes, let's be more environmentally friendly. The big industry leaders would say, yes, I'm happy to do that if you subsidize me, because otherwise I lose my competitiveness with regard to international competitors. Yeah? So it's always a little bit like this, and then we go. Nowadays, I feel that from a social perspective, the companies have learned that they have to move into that direction anyway. So that's one movement. The other movement, and that is relating to the car industry, I completely agree, because if you look, for example, in Germany, we have bigger and bigger and more bigger cars. 10 years ago, we complained about the Americans who had these gas-consuming big cars. Now, if you look in Berlin, everybody has an SUV for whatever small range. So that's a little bit concerning. On the other hand, I think, and that is motivating, if you look at the younger generation, especially in Berlin, doesn't want to own a car anymore. They do car sharing. That's it. And the status symbol is no more the car, but it's the Samsung, the iPhone, whatever, yeah? But the cars are gone. So it might solve from itself, if you look from the generation who are much more into asset sharing. That's also Slocket. We share our apartments, car sharing. Yeah? So we use local assets and use them more in the benefit of the environment.
But perhaps what we can also observe when it comes to environmental impact. So there are companies around like Fairphone, for example, that really addresses the problem of these kind of mining issues, that claim themselves that they would produce the smartphones environmental friendly. And there are a lot of social startups in Berlin that try to address this problem as well. And what we also see is that, for example, a big supermarket chain in Germany now tries to evade all of the rubbish and gives you like something where you can put your stuff in without having a lot of waste anymore. So there are a lot of movements at the moment coming from there.
Which country is currently thriving under 4.0, America, China, and so on? I think that's very hard to answer, because I think that depends on the segment. Yeah, and there are many segments, and I'm sure that Malaysia can be leading in one segment also. And you do not always have to lead worldwide, but you might lead regionally on the continent or in your vicinity in Southeast Asia, and that would be also very good. I would like to focus on, shall we train the experts or hire one? I think there are some experts who want to develop anyway in that direction, so let's develop them in that direction. I think you should hire new ones, but I would like to stress that you should educate the management to understand the experts. Yeah? Because sometimes then the experts have a great idea, and then you say, no, we do business as usual, forget about it. Yeah? So I think that is important. Yeah? I know, for example, from a huge German company who built up tremendously these expert people. they hire hundreds of people because they go into automation and they look for statistics, they look for engineering, they look for data miners. Yeah, and these kind of people, actually the question is whether you want to hire them full time. This is a little bit like my boys, yeah? They might sit at home with a headphone on. So if you call them for dinner, you write WhatsApp because they can't hear you anymore, yeah? But then in between they do a great algorithm and everything is fine. And they are also used to work globally on these games. They work together with the Danish, with the Russian, on whatever games, and they solve that. Yeah? And you can also outsource that. There are many platforms where you simply put your problem on an algorithm, and then somebody in the short sit on some beach and will solve that for you much more cheaper than hiring an expert. Yeah? So it's getting much more diverse, and you can also insource that capability. I think that's it. I wish you a wonderful digital evening.
Thank you to Mr. Christoph and Ms. Bianca for the very interesting sharing session regarding the 4.0. This marked the end of the Embracing Industry 4.0 seminar, and I, on behalf of the organizing committee, thankful to all the guests and the participants that attend this seminar. Hopefully, our seminar today has enlightened us regarding the Industry 4.0 and achieve our objectives. The organizer would like to invite all the participants and distinguished guests to enjoy our tea provided at the lobby and pay a visit at the booth regarding the project of PKNS and outside. Thank you.